Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com. You may recall a few days ago, some of you had mentioned the dearth of Giuseppe Sinopoli chats, and so I did that 16-disc Italian Deutsche Grammophon universal box of orchestral stuff that was quite the mixed bag. And some of you mentioned that there is also a box of his concerto recordings. Well, yes, there is, and here it is. Which I managed to dig up because of my plumbing disaster, which made me have to rip out the wall of my office to put in a new shower in the adjoining bathroom. And as a result of that, I dug out these Sinopoli boxes. And so I figured we would cover them and give Sinopoli a little bit of attention until the big Sinopoli box arrives, which, of course, at some point it probably will. Who knows? Anyway, this is 8 discs, right? 4 and 4 in these jewel box things. And let me see if there's a list of what's actually in them. Well, we can just do it from the back of each box. That's easy enough. And some of these things we know. Some of these things are fairly readily available. And in other boxes devoted to the various soloists. So these performances aren't so hard to come by. And Sinopoli was actually a very effective concerto accompanist. He really was. I mean, his orchestral music is pretty patchy, but as an accompanist, he was just like he was a very good opera conductor. I mean, he was considerate of his soloists and, again, characterful enough to have plenty of personality where he needed to. And so we begin with Beethoven Piano Concerti 1 and 2 with Martha Argerich, which we just talked about as one of the greatest recordings ever, as it certainly is. Some people had issues with the sound of these recordings. I find the sound of these recordings to be very good. And that's one of the reasons I don't talk about sound very much. I really don't, because most of these things, unless there's something really off, it always comes down to, first of all, how your ears work, if they do. And then, your own listening room and equipment and all that stuff, which I'm not going into. But, if the sound needs to be mentioned for one reason or another, because it's either very good or very bad, I mention it. Otherwise, you could basically assume that it's going to get the job done. And when people make comments that go crazy, someone went nuts about the sound of this recording, that it was cavernous and there was no detail and you couldn't hear the orchestra. I don't know what drug they were taking. I just deleted the comment. It's just, life is too short for certain things. Anyway, so there's that. Then we've got, Beethoven Violin Concerto with the 2 Romances with Shlomo Mintz. It's always nice to hear Shlomo Mintz. There was a Shlomo Mintz box. So, it's not my favorite Beethoven Violin Concerto, but there's nothing wrong with it. It's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. Then we've got the Gil Shaham stuff, and all the Gil Shaham stuff is first class, because he's just a first-class soloist. Great stuff. You've got the Bruch and Mendelssohn violin concertos. The usual. Very, very nicely done. Sinopoli was a very good Mendelssohn conductor. Remember, his first recording for Deutsche Grammophon was Schubert's Unfinished and Mendelssohn's Italian Symphony. A beautiful disc. A beautiful disc. He remade the Schubert with the Staatskapelle Dresden, but it's still a beautiful disc. And then we have the Elgar Cello Concerto and the Tchaikovsky Rococo Variations with Misha Maisky. These are all with the Philharmonia Orchestra. Well, I'm not a fan of that. First of all, I don't like the Elgar particularly. And second of all, the Tchaikovsky bores me to tears. And third of all, Maisky is one of those, superheated. He does really well with Sinopoli, actually, because Sinopoli is, especially in Elgar, is into the late romantic, tired, decadent, hothouse flower approach. And there, I just think it's too much. I really do. It doesn't appeal to me. I have heard performances of the Elgar that I can tolerate, that I like. Performances of the Tchaikovsky, nah. Life is too short. Even though there aren't that many great works for cello and orchestra, which is why cellists keep playing it. Then we've got, oh yes, this weird thing. Manzoni's Massa, homage to Edgar Varese, with Maurizio Pollini and the Berlin Philharmonic. Well, assuming you can tolerate the thing at all, it's a piece of avant-garde squeak, bloop, texture, noise thing. And if you can endure it, then, fine. And it's coupled with the Schoenberg Chamber Symphony, which is very nicely done with members of the Berlin Philharmonic. That's for connoisseurs or masochists, depending on how you look at it. Let's see what else we got here. CD6, Mozart, the Concerto for Flute and Harp with Kenneth Smith and Bryn Lewis, ARPA, the harpist. And then that Symphony Concertant for oboe, clarinet, horn, and bassoon, which is really not by Mozart. It's only attributed. I don't think it's by Mozart at all. I think after 5 seconds of hearing the opening orchestral tutti where the strings are hanging on a sort of a chugga 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 chugga, you see the upper register and you can't hear the melody, and it's not Mozart. Not an interesting work either. People only play it because it gives the woodwind players something to do. Again, it's like the Tchaikovsky Rococo variations. Give the principals of the orchestra something to do when you don't have a more famous soloist showing up. Well, they're more interesting works. It just takes a little bit of imagination. But the Concerto for Flute and Harp is nice, so that's okay. Then we've got Paganini, First Violin Concerto, and the Saint-Saëns Violin Concerto number 3 with Gil Shaham and the New York Phil. This is an absolutely fabulous disc that no one pays attention to. It went out of print within seconds. It's wonderful. The violin playing is amazing. The New York Phil is terrific, and Sinopoli really did wonderful work with the New York Phil, quite a bit. He was there very frequently. I saw him very frequently there. They did some amazing stuff. Then we got Sibelius and Tchaikovsky violin concertos with the Philharmonia and Shaham. Also excellent performances. Very, very nicely done. So, on the whole, aside from the fake Mozart, the Misha Maisky, Elgar Pant-and-Heave disc, and Tchaikovsky Rococo variations, backwards. This is, and the Manzoni, Massa, whatever that thing is called. Essentially, this is really first rate for the most part. It shows Sinopoli on very good form. Most of the soloists on terrific form. The sound is very good. The performances are lovely. There's no reason not to get it, except for the fact that you probably can't find it anymore. However, all the Shaham stuff was in the Shaham box. Maisky is in the Maisky box. I mean, you have to get maybe 450 other CDs that you may or may not want in order to get this one, but it exists. You can find this stuff, and Sinopoli's history on DG as a concerto accompanist is secure. So, he was good guy. Keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me, and take care.